record on this computer. So hopefully you can all press your OKs, and then we're going to share the screen and get going. All right, so hopefully you can all see that. We're going to start from the beginning. Perfect. All right, is it working, or which one do you have, Mike? Do you have up like the full slide, or do you have up the?
No, it's all good from my end. I see the
Oh.
presentation deck. So
Wow, that's impressive. That normally does not.
yeah, I mean, last year we never got it right once.
No, ever, never. We were showing our age. All right, so good morning, welcome. Like we said, feel free. You can type stuff in the chat. We will get to it. Today is your first presentation day, which is great. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to do the presentations, and we're going to try to put some, connect some dots between what we've been learning, so we can start to move to the next section. Because basically, this is the finish of the first section. I did, after class last week, I stopped in at Reptilia, which is across the street. Across the 401, just down the street from where we take class. And they said that they would be more than happy for us to actually host one of our classes with them, which is great. Mike and I will have to figure out which one it's going to be. And then I have to figure out all the red tape that I have to go through to make it so we're allowed to actually go and go there for class. So we'll see if that is something that is too difficult. I'm hoping that it's not. I think that it should be okay for us to do it, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a fun time. Get to see all the snakes and the reptiles, and we're going to meet. We'll meet the operations director, and we're going to probably meet the head animal welfare person as well when we do the behind the scenes tour. So that, looking forward to that when it happens. And it's only one piece of paperwork, and because we aren't going to take you away from any of your other classes that day, it should be okay. All right, so here we go. So today what we're going to be doing is quickly going through the presentation expectations, then we're going to do the presentations, and then we're going to have a discussion after we do a really fun Padlet, probably one of my more favorite Padlets that we will do today. And then we're going to do a quick intro to interdepartmental. Oof, hold on, let me sip my coffee before I can say that one. Interdepartmental, look at that, operations. And we will then conclude, and we will leave you, and we have to get out to a meeting that starts at 11:45. So we might get out of here a little bit early today. We're hoping for around 10:30. Okay, so here's our expectations. Number one, no pressure. Don't panic. It's just a class. There's no money riding on this. You will get through it. Take your time, so talk slowly and succinctly as you can. You've got about 10 to 15 minutes. Most people last year probably got through it in about 6 to 10. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, so if don't talk really slowly just to get to the 10-minute mark. If you're in and around that 5 or 6 minutes, you're fine. If you got all your information out, that's not a big deal. And then the main thing is, when you're talking, make sure you clearly state which attraction you're talking about, and then when you're switching to the other attraction, make sure that you say that I'm switching and go then talk about the second one. And then afterwards we'll have a bit of a group discussion at the end. So you can just save your comments for that, or you can write comments in the chat as the presentations are going. All right, so without any further ado, first of all, are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions before we start?
Hello, good morning. I do have a question, actually.
Okay, I hopefully have an answer for you. Go.
If we wanted to share our screen, like if we just did like a small visual thing,
Yeah.
Would we be able to do that?
I think so. I think that you'll be able to share the screen.
Okay, sounds good.
Here, I have an idea. You go first, see if you can share it.
Oh, okay.
If I stop sharing, do you have the ability to share the screen?
Okay, give me a second. Okay,
And
it says
that will look
host
better on the
disabled
spot, but
participant screen sharing.
You have
Okay.
to turn that on, Chuck.
Okay, well, that's gonna be harder than it seems. Let me see. Oh, advanced sharing options. All participants. All right. So I've done that. So now try again.
Give me a second.
Whoops.
Okay, can you see this?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So I guess I'll just get started.
Let her rip.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Anissa. So the two operations that I chose to do is Canada's Wonderland and Ripley's Aquarium. And these are some of the physical attributes that both of them had. So I kind of just laid them out side by side to see the differences between both. So the theme, obviously, for Canada's Wonderland is amusement theme park. And then for Ripley's, it would be zoo, aquarium, or botanical. And then both of them are actually large in size. Canada's Wonderland is outdoor, seasonal, a major attraction. It is man-made, obviously because of the rides, and then it is both ticketed and gated. And then Ripley's is large as well, indoor, year-round, passive, major, man-made, with the exception of natural being the actual marine life. And then it's both the same as Canada's Wonderland, being ticketed and gated. And so I kind of just highlighted the different ones in blue. Obviously Canada's Wonderland being outdoor, it is seasonal and it's more of an active attraction where you're obviously taking part in the rides. And then indoor for Ripley's Aquarium, it's year round and it is passive as you're kind of just walking around and looking at marine life. Next is the departments for both of Canada's Wonderlands and Ripley's would be on the next slide. So the ones in white are kind of the ones that are similar between both of them, which you'll also see on the next slide. And the ones in the blue, which make it different, is aquatics, ride maintenance, operations, games, landscaping, and entertainment. So just to briefly go over the ones in the white first, obviously marketing communications would be I guess like an example is like online or social media, through their website, anything that they're kind of pushing out to consumers. Guest services, anything that has to do with the guests, in terms of like customer complaints or I guess dealing with reviews, maybe that could be included. HR, so like we talked about with recruiting and orientation. Retail would be merchandise, food and beverage. Technology, IT, again, everything that has to do with all the technology in the park. So like videos or pictures or sound, like audio around the park, like announcements and stuff. Groups and education is, I guess, again, going back to like those school trips, and then having an opportunity to like perform with example like school bands and stuff. Finances and accounting is, I guess, that could include sales, and I guess like procurement of funds for the actual park in order to like develop itself. Safety, so including like emergency services, and that would be I guess one of the departments in safety. Security would be like both for the public safety, with security guards and stuff, and then also the safety of the actual rides. Facilities is, I guess, like things that have to do with some of the what should I say, like the types of things that guests are using. I guess maybe like bathrooms maybe would be included. And then just the ones that are different, aquatics, they do have like the water and like the diving shows and stuff. Ride maintenance and operations, so just making sure that those are all working games, so the small game like stalls and stuff that people can go to, landscaping, like outdoors. You'll see like the big ponds, I mean the big fountains, and then like the floral stuff around that. And just like the general upkeep of all of like the trees and flowers and everything around the park. And then entertainment is like if they have live shows or events. And then this is a lot, but anyways, the next slide is for Ripley's Aquarium, and so I kind of touched on all of the ones from before. And the only ones that I guess make it different is conservation, learning and engagement, and animal caretaking. And so conservation would be like the actual animal, not the actual animals, but like learning about making sure that the animals are safe, I guess, and like learning about the life of animals and just like keeping that uh, science around it. Learning engagement would be again going back to like those groups in education, and so like promoting those services to learn more about like the marine life, and then the actual animal caretaking, which would be like taking care of the fish or like the water quality. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Perfect. Well done. That was a
Thank
very
you.
good start.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
I'm not sure how to end this screen share.
I think just go to the share screen again, and then it says stop
Right
sharing.
here. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah.
Oop, you got it. See?
Good.
Done.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank
Done.
you.
Okay, let's see. Let's go to Frez next. Are you ready? Now, and also don't, if you pick the same attractions, don't feel, you know, that it's okay. It's okay. We're going to hear the same thing over and over again. We didn't give you a huge amount of choice. All right. There we go. Morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Hello. All right, we're ready when you're ready.
I didn't exactly make a presentation, but
That's-
it's just a
That is,
Word
that is,
document.
yep, that's okay. Don't you worry about it. You don't need to share it. You can just talk to it. That's not a big deal whatsoever. So we're ready to go when you want. And you probably don't worry about, you don't worry about sharing your Word doc. Oh, you are going to share. That's awesome. Okay, that was great. Perfect.
So, hi guys, my name is Faraz, and the two attractions I've chosen is Canada's Wonderland and Toronto Zoo.
Okay.
So, Canada's Wonderland, the theme descriptor of this attraction is amusement park, and the physical descriptors are large, outdoor, seasonal, active, major, ticketed, and gated. And the departments in Canada's Wonderland may include admissions, merchandising, customer service, maintenance, park enforcement, food and beverage, security. I'm not sure about sanitation, but yeah, HR department and logistics. And for Toronto Zoo, the theme descriptor of this attraction is zoos or aquariums. And the physical descriptors are large, hybrid, which is indoor and outdoor. It depends. It is also year-round, major, ticketed, passive, and gated. And the departments may include admissions, maintenance, parking enforcement, food and beverage, security, sanitation, HR department, and groundskeeping. And the two attractions, they're similar in the operations perspective way, because both Canada's Wonderland and Toronto Zoo are considered to be physically vast in size. when viewed from an operational point of view. And both establishments are gated and ticketed, which require prepayment in order to participate in what they have to offer. And both of the attractions have a food and beverage outlet. And they differ in, like, Canada's Wonderland is only open at certain times of the year, but Toronto Zoo is open throughout the year. And the generation of profits is the primary goal of Canada's Wonderland, whereas upkeep of the zoo is the primary concern of that establishment. The physical description of Canada's Wonderland is active due to the fact that you may engage in rides and activities, whereas physical descriptor of Toronto Zoo is passive due to the fact that you can only observe the wildlife from a distance. That's it.
That was good. You know what? I hadn't even thought of that as a differentiator between the zoo and Wonderland. You're right. The zoo is a not-for-profit. It's not there to make someone $1 million and keep the shareholders happy. That was a good catch.
I don't know. My understanding is Wonderland exists to make people happy, Chuck.
No, Mike. Yes, it is. And in doing so, they're making people a bucket load of cash.
Well, they're making different people happy in different ways.
That's right. All right. Jaskran, are you ready?
Yes, I am on my mobile phone, and like I am also on Word document, but it isn't showing up properly.
Don't
So-
worry about it. You can just talk your way through what you found.
Okay, so I chose Toronto Zoo and Replace Aquarium of Canada as my two attractions to compare. So for Toronto Zoo, it is a large size attraction which have almost more than 2,500 animals in it. It's open. It's an outdoor attraction which is open year round, but also have some indoor elements like aquarium and stuff. So it is a passive attraction, so you don't get to do anything major. Although they introduce some activities for you to involve yourself in. So it is one of the major attraction, as it is one of the largest zoo of Canada and is gated and ticketed. So you have to buy a ticket to go inside. For Ripley's Aquarium, it is a medium-sized attraction, which is mainly an indoor attraction. It is also open year-round, and it is also a passive attraction, but it can't be considered a major attraction because it is situated near CN Tower, which can be considered a major attraction. It was built to attract people from CN Tower. It is a gated attraction and ticketed also. So about the department that are similar in Toronto Zoo are the operation department that can be said to be similar are like they both have vets for the animal upkeep. As they host, they have a large number of fish in one and a large number of aquatic life as well as other animals. So they have many vets, almost 2 or 3 in Toronto Zoo, and in Ripley it's maybe 1 or 2. So they are both gated attractions. So they both have ticketed office, and they also sell retail products for that. So some of their sales also come from retail. Both Toronto Zoo and Ripley's Aquarium sell different items with their branding. So there are some. So the difference between the services can be on the basis of their size. So one is a major attraction, which is also one of the largest, while the other is a secondary attraction and is not that big as compared to Toronto Zoo. So for Toronto Zoo, there is a grounds department that is required, as it have a large outdoor area, whereas in Ripley it's not that much of a requirement. Moreover, although they have some security requirements, it's in Toronto Zoo. It differs by large amount of what kind of security is needed for, like security for stopping people from going too close to the animals, security for feed mm, feeding the animals and stuff. Whereas in Ripley's, not much security is needed. It is only needed to keep the queue in line.
Yeah.
So Toronto Zoo is a business for preservation of endangered animals and is not there to make profit, whereas Ripley's Aquarium is mainly open for making profits for their shareholders or corporate organization from which it's from. Thank you.
Perfect. Yep. Making money for Jim Pattison. That's who owns it. Jim Senior and Jim Junior. But yeah, that's excellent. Thank you very, very much. Shivam. I apologize if that was not pronounced correctly. I think it was.
No, it's okay, sir. So I have actually I have chosen almost like Canada's Wonderland, Wonderland and Toronto Zoo.
Okay.
So for the Canada's Wonderland, it is like seasonal and also gated, and like as just Karan mentioned, that it is like mainly for making profit, and like the younger people like us who like to enjoy, and like people go to have some fun, and the theme for it is like the amusement park. And most of the young people who wants to enjoy and to want to spend good time, they prefer to go to Wonderland rather than like zoo. So like the areas included in the Toronto Zoo are the departments included in the for Toronto Zoo are like animals maintenance, cleaning, security, and food and beverages. Whereas similar with the Canada's Wonderland, like security, guest service, and basic maintenance, and like maintenance for their rides and all these things. Whereas for the people who love the animals, they prefer to go to the zoo. And in the major attractions for zoo is like there are huge variety species of animals, like the main difference is the zoo is year round, and like there are huge variety and species of animals, and people who have great love for animals, they love to go to the zoo.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Last but not least, Carrie, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I just need to share my screen.
Yep. Yeah. If for some reason, it did work. Okay, I was gonna say if it wasn't working.
Let's see, go to here.
CN Tower. I haven't seen this one yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did Canada's Wonderland and the CN Tower. So for Canada's Wonderland, it's a theme park, and for descriptors, it is a large theme park. It's seasonal, outdoors, gated, and it is active and a major attraction. For the departments that Canada's Wonderland would have would be aquatics, risk management, customer service, rides, maintenance, food and beverage, emergency procedures, security, education programs, groundskeeping, party and groups, missions, retails, and information technology. So for the CN Tower, it is a landmark destination. Then for description, it would be a medium-sized attraction. It is year-round. It is mostly indoors except for the edge walk. It is gated, and then mostly passive, and again, except for the edge walk. And then it is a major attraction in the area.
That's a great picture, by the way.
Oh, yeah. And then for the departments, for CN Tower, be retail, customer service, safety, emissions, food and beverage, elevator repair, security, and marketing. So for the similarities between both of them, both are major attractions that people decide to go and visit. They both have missions and they're both gated. Both supply food and beverages, and both have at least one or more outdoor activities. For the differences, both are different size attractions. Canada Wonderland brings in 4 million visitors per year, and CN Tower brings in almost 2 million per year. Canada's Wonderland is outdoors and CN Tower is indoors, but they do have the edge walk. And then when it comes to safety, Canada's Wonderland has to prepare for more because they are an outdoor park and have many rides. CN Tower doesn't have to worry much because they don't have many things outside besides the edge walk, but they have to worry about if like any customers or like, well, people go in there and like steal or anything like that, but they don't have to worry about weather or conditions of their rides because everything, or someone breaking in from, like, it's not as easy to break in because Canada's Wonderland is an outdoor park.
Yeah.
And then,
Excellent.
thank you.
Well done. Man, oh man, you know what? This was all of them were excellent. Thank you very, very much. Yeah. Just click the share screen again, and you can do then you click stop sharing.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
No worries. You know what? And it's the first time we hadn't even talked about for profit or not for profit. We didn't talk about it at all last year. I don't think we even had that on our radar very much, but it really does change how you operate and why you operate, right? And a lot of them are cultural type attractions. So you know, the not Canada's not that one, but the Royal Ontario Museum, right? They're a research museum. They're an actual, you know, they're there for preservation, they're there for education, they're there to learn, and they have curators there that are writing papers and are you know, learning about ancient civilizations and coming up with conclusions that are published worldwide. Art galleries, same thing. They're not there to make money. They're there to preserve these works and expose people to them so they can learn, you know, where we've come from artistically, right, all the way through to modern. So in doing that, and I think I've said before, when I worked at the Royal Ontario Museum, when it came to the curators and everything, their take on it was, boy, if it wasn't for all these people in here, this place would be great. The curators don't care. They would rather the ROM be closed to the public because it would allow them to do their work a little bit better, right? Because they wouldn't have to worry about it. But so the fact that the ROM is an attraction is a means to an end, so that the curators have enough money to be paid and do their research, right? If there was an endless supply of money without having people in the museum, they would probably think that that was fine. The fact of the matter is, it costs a lot to employ all of the researchers and keep those archives and all of those sort of things. And the government does not provide enough money every year for them just to be closed to the public. Ontario Place, believe it or not, was kind of a not-for-profit as well, right? not by choice, but the same thing. Like when it first opened, it was free. It was this showcase, and it was free to the public, and the taxpayers paid for everything. By the time by the time it closed, I think the annual amount of money was about 1.3 that the government would give, and a lot of that was to try to keep things looking nice, keep the paint going, and doing some capital repairs. But 1.3 million wasn't even close to being enough to run that park. So that's why there was parking, there was admissions, there was the marina, there was contracts with third parties. There was a whole ton of different things to try to make enough money to operate during the season so that they could pay for repairs and that sort of stuff. But it was never meant to be a for-profit.
Yeah, it was an interesting setup because it was an amusement park, and you won't see this very often. So, it's kind of too bad it's gone, because it's kind of an interesting case study that, not a lot of municipalities operate amusement parks. And in Ontario Place's case, obviously that was the truth. And they, it had to meet certain sort of mandates, right? In terms of, it's a public asset. So then it had to be accessible to more of the public than, let's say, a Canada's Wonderland, where Canada's Wonderland doesn't obviously have that obligation to be, something within the reach of, affordability for most, or all people. So, those sort of differentiate out. I've seen cases in the States where water parks are owned and operated by municipalities, and it was a way for their Parks and Recreation department to make more money.
Self-fund, right?
Yeah, to self-fund it and make more money for the city itself to operate its other programs, right? Because they would have, like up here, right, where you have Toronto Parks and Rec running, wellness programs and fitness programs and things in different neighborhoods. And, those things, they need to keep those costs down to make sure that people can access those services. But at the same time, they all cost money, right? So they would look at different ways. And given that, those municipal operators were already in the pool business, it wasn't a big reach for them to get into the water park business. And, one example is a city called Highland Hills, which is just outside of Denver. And they operate one of the biggest water parks I've ever seen. The thing's got like 2 wave pools and everything going on, but it's owned by the municipality and it's run that way. So, but they obviously, as Chuck mentioned, I mean, there's different priorities, right, based on what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, and it's funny because it can also spill into private business, and this is something I've had to learn just with what I do for my full-time job, which is working with stakeholders throughout the regions. And I went and I visited a very small cidery that also had a maple sugar bush, or has a maple sugar bush, and I walked in. And the people, like the owners, are phenomenal, great people. And I'm looking at their property, which is massive, and looking at their operations. And I was like, if you just said you've got this really beautiful long driveway, but some people get a little nervous about driving down someone's private property if they're not used to it. So if you blew out this field right here and put gravel down or paved it, I said, you would be swamped. You could have buses in here. You could be making money hand over fist. And they're like, that's not what we're in business for. Which I was like, what? What do you mean you're not in business to make a boatload of money? And they're not. They're in it to teach people about responsible farming, because they have these really cool fields that have all sorts of different plants that all build on each other. So one is depositing nutrients into the soil that the other one needs, and vice versa. And it's really quite interesting. And their ideal was to have 8 to 10 people on property at any given time and give them these tours and get them excited about what they were doing, and have them maybe hopefully buy some of their cider or maple syrup when they left. And I said, well, if that is what you're doing, then you're not charging enough, because they were only charging $8 a head or something at 10 people at a time. So there's $80 that they'd be making. They could do maybe 3 groups a day. Well, it wasn't sustainable. I said, in this instance, you have way less supply. This is going back to your economics 101 of supply and demand. You have way less supply than there is demand, right? So if you're only letting on 30 people a day during maple syrup season, when other places like I'm just trying Mountsburg, which is in my neck of the woods over here, it's a conservation area that probably puts through 10,000 people a day during maple syrup season. And they're allowing for 30 that are now going to have this intimate behind the scenes experience, and they're going to get to taste the syrup right from the tree all the way through the 6 stages as it becomes syrup, and taste as it's getting sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. I said, that is now a premium experience. Instead of charging $10 a person, you should be charging $100 a person or $150 a person, because there are people who will pay that. They're like, well, we want to be accessible. I said, like, accessible meaning open, that everyone can do it. And I said, well, you can't have it both ways. The accessible one is when you go to Mountsburg and everyone pays their $10 with the 10,000. I said, what you could do is you can say, we're going to actually charge 175 and let people know that because of the premium rate, she can reach out to the big brothers and sisters or the Girl Guides or the Boy Scouts or something and bring in groups of people once a week for free that wouldn't normally be able to afford it, because of the money they're making off the people that can. And that's exactly what she did last year. And they actually made a little bit of money for the first time, right? So they charged more. They explained that the part of the increase was to allow groups to come in that couldn't afford it for free, and people had no problem paying this inflated rate, because it was such a cool experience that was limited in the amount of people that were going to be able to do it during a year. So it was, I still don't get it, because Glow Zone is a volume business for what we are, right? Only 15,000 square feet, but we're putting through 80 to 85,000 people a year in 15,000 square feet. And so we are all about cheap and cheerful is the easiest way to say it. We are meant to just people, and we charge $16. And for $16 a person, you get a game of laser tag, a game of mini golf, and a $5 card for the arcade. And that'll give you about an hour and a half's worth of entertainment. And we put through volume. Wonderland puts through volume, right? It costs a lot to run a Wonderland. And that's why they're putting in 30,000, 40,000 people a day. And people say, well, that's still expensive. And you're right. In there, if you don't have a season's pass, to take a family of 4 to Wonderland for the day, for a one-day thing, it sometimes is people's vacation, right? It's probably going to cost you, what, $700?
Yeah,
Mike?
probably. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. But people do it as part of their vacations, right? And those who, and a lot of people in the GTA buy the season's passes. The best thing about a season's pass is by the time you start going, you totally forgot about the money that you spent on it already, because you've paid for it. And then you don't mind dropping an extra $50 while you're there on food and all the extras. So it's a good model to have. Any questions or comments on that? Anything else that you heard from anyone else? You feel free to write it in the chat if you want. I'm going to go back to share the screen here.
Yeah, I had some thoughts about the presentations. I think, everybody, obviously, like Chuck said, a lot of people picked the same attractions, which is kind of what we expected. And we saw that before, because we didn't give you that many choices. But, what was interesting, it was how, everybody kind of approached them a little bit differently, or had different thoughts about what their needs were, or even how they sank in. I recall it, I think, one presenter had the Ripley's Aquarium as a major attraction, and another one had it as a medium attraction. And kind of goes back to when we talked about those definitions, about how they're kind of arbitrary, right? And it depends on how you sort of frame that definition, right? Was it about how many people it does, or about its physical size, and you maybe, for something like Ripley's Aquarium, you might be able to kind of make that argument both ways, right? That, it's a very busy aquarium. I think they're doing well over 1 million visits a year. But, in physical area, you know, compared to something like the zoo or an outdoor attraction is not going to take up that 300 acres, right? You know, it's a large building. I'd say it's probably what, like a couple 100,000 square feet. But you know, it's not in the scale of the Toronto Zoo in terms of its property, but they may almost actually match each other in attendance. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take on it. And just, you know, generally, I think everybody kind of got the idea there that there were a lot of similarities, like those sort of functional groups, right? About, you know, how we sell tickets and how we, you know, how the attractions do those kinds of things. And then, you know, there's these specialist departments that, you know, are required at different attractions based on what they are, right? Like if you're an animal attraction, or if you're a amusement park, or, you know, even something like the CN Tower, there'd be different sort of needs, because it's a different experience, or it's a different genre, we'll call it, of an attraction. So, you know, you have all those different things. And, you know, I think, you know, you can go so far down the rabbit hole and sort of thinking about what functional groups exist in an attraction, especially as they get larger. You know, when you're looking at something the scale of Canada's Wonderland, you know, I probably lost count of the number of departments that, you know, or sort of functional groups that exist within there, because as you continue to specialize your business, or you tend to get into more and more sort of different things, and the attractions industry is always evolving. You know, when you look at the business itself, you know, if we were doing this course, you know, 20 years ago, nobody would be talking about Halloween events and Christmas events and outdoor attractions. They just didn't exist. But now those parts of those businesses are major components of it. And, you know, from somebody who works within the attractions industry, to see the change in those parks because of those events is dramatic. And it sprung a whole series of departments that didn't exist before. And they operate almost as their own sort of part of the business, where the rest of the park has to keep doing its thing. But then all of a sudden you have this group of people who are charged with putting on the sort of attraction within an attraction. You know, that Halloween event it's its own animal. So there are people there that they spend their entire year planning for it, you know, building props, sets, executing it, you know, makeup artists, costumers, all those things that didn't exist prior to that event, but are now an integral part of that business. So, so I guess, you know, where I loop back to, it's, you know, when you look at what activities or things going on, you can always find something else that's in there, and it'll surprise you in the breadth of the industry. And it tends to gobble up sort of expertise in a number of fields. So
yeah, I had seen, I think one of the presentations described Ripley's as a medium-sized major attraction, and I thought that was interesting, and I think fairly accurate. Also, just because of where it is, right? It's right next to the CN Tower, which is probably one of the most identifiable landmarks in Canada, not just Toronto. You know, if you are not from Canada and you think of Canada, you are thinking of Mounties, right? Mountains. And then I would say Niagara Falls and the CN Tower would probably be the four things that people might identify with being Canadian or Canada. So I thought that was quite interesting. I also, someone did some good research on the 2 million. So 2 million people at the CN Tower. And I don't know if that is going up the CN Tower, that means that if they were open 10 hours per day, 365 days a year, it's 550 people an hour going up those elevators.
It might be. I mean,
oh yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, wow, like they are probably. And the interesting part is, if you are operating at capacity all of the time, like at your full capacity, you can't get more people in. Operations becomes, that's how you operate. You are operating, and your full steam ahead is now your normal, right? Somewhere like a Glow Zone, we do 5% of our annual sales in 1 week over March break. So the school March break, we will do almost quadruple what a regular week is. So we have our Monday, our right now which is September through till the Christmas holiday. We have Monday through Thursday. It's one person on, maybe two in the evenings, just nice and relaxed. The weekends are slammed with birthday parties and walk-in. So we go in these ups and downs where we understand what our, how our visitor flow typically is on those days, and we staff to it so we can be in operations. But it changes daily. And then March break would be operating, everyone's on, right? We have all the extra staff. I take a week vacation from this job so I can go work at Glow Zone just to be there to, make sure people are having a good time. That's my job. And anything else, and usually I get in trouble. Don't touch the till, Chuck. You're gonna mess things up. but the CN Tower probably operates like we do during March break every day, which then becomes their normal. It's conceptually, it's a really interesting that, every day they'll have the same amount of staff on because they know they're going to be sold out. It's really kind of cool.
But they have a really small landscaping department.
They do. Not much there. Maybe a bonsai or two.
Well, when you think about what they get, I'll say when you're looking at indoor attractions, or even in retail too, you're looking when the indoor space, you need, sometimes you look at it about like sort of how much revenue or how many people you're driving per square foot of space. The CN Tower would be doing a phenomenal job because when you look at it, I mean, it's 500 meters tall, but most of it is not. It's not occupied. It's just that bubble. What about 3/4 of the way up? And I don't even want to make a guess on its square footage, but it's not massive. But just imagine doing quite well for what they have. So
yeah. Well, yeah, and I'm trying to think, even if we did March break all year round, I don't think we'd hit 2 million.
Yeah. 2 million at a FEC would be a scary proposition.
Yeah.
Nobody would have any fun.
No, our capacity in our buildings is about 100 and 150. So we can only have 150 in there an hour. So that they're doing 500 an hour. So we wouldn't even be able to keep up. So anyway, I just found that to be interesting. All right, let's go to the next slide. So what conclusions can we draw? Well, this is sort of I'm not sure if did we write this out beforehand? I think so. So number one, there's more operational similarities between attractions than there are differences, even when the physical themes are different, right? Environments and themes are different. And I think that was true. I think when you talk about the departments within an attraction are the same. What their function is could be different within each one. Someone was pointing out that both have security at an indoor and an outdoor, but it's going to be way easier to break into a Wonderland because you just got to hop a fence than it will be to break into, and I can't remember which was the attraction, probably the aquarium or the CN Tower, I think was what it was. Yeah, it's only got a couple ways in. And even if you get in, how the heck are you going to get up if the elevators are locked?
I don't think they lock the doors at the top of the tower.
Huh?
I don't think they need to lock the doors at the top of the tower.
No, probably not. Probably not. The skills from operations are transferable between attractions, given that, right? So that makes, it makes being in operations is a good career path. I've worked, how many attractions have I worked at? Well, I started at Jumping Frogs, which was an indoor playground for kids. And then I went to Putting Edge. That's 2. Then I went to, where'd I go? Ontario Place. From Ontario Place to the Royal Ontario Museum, from the Royal Ontario Museum to a museum out in Kitchener called The Museum. And now I own my own. That's 6 if I added that up correctly.
Yeah.
Mike, you've done quite a bit. It's all transferable.
Yeah.
And you've been in and you've transferred those skills out of attractions too.
Yeah, I think, I would say the best story that I can kind of commute and I can relate to that that sort of point is how does a guy who basically specialized, and I'll say in amusement parks and water parks, end up working for FIFA? One, I don't I will admit I am not a fan of soccer or football, but I know I'm in the minority in the globe, so I'll take that. But I ended up working for obviously the premier organization for soccer, and at one of their sort of World Cup level events in operations and in venue operations. And I remember even when I was interviewing for the job, telling them that I'm not there for the soccer, but the transferables, the experiences that I had in dealing with large volume, high capacity events was transferable in so many ways. And obviously they agreed, since I worked for them. And then that transitioned to a role at the Pan Am Games as well, where I did that, and I didn't have any previous sporting event experience, but I was able to take those principles and move them across. And because when you're in the end, you're looking at sort of in operations, especially, you're looking at that, as we talked about in our definition, about that sort of efficient, safe, sort of systemized approach to sort of dealing with public and in public realms and events and things like that. And there's all those layers to it, so you can apply those things. You may have to learn new terminology, or or a few different each sort of area of attractions has its quirks about how they like things to be run, or how they sort of go about doing their business. But in the end, there's a lot of similarities. And I think when you start looking around at that, you can kind of see it, whether you go to like a Toronto Maple Leafs game or a Blue Jays game, or go somewhere like a amusement park or a zoo, you can start to see where those lines tend to blur, right? And you can be able to hop around. And yeah, for me, it is a good career path in terms of, it gives you sort of a broader experience, and you get to learn those little niche parts of it. And, you can bring those learnings into different areas, right? So, yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then this number 3 is unique, I think, to maybe not just the attractions industry, but we do share best practices. There's within the attractions community, there is the understanding that the more of us that are around, the better it is for everyone. Because I know that people aren't going to come to Glow Zone every single week. It's not going to happen, right? Well, it would be great if it did, but it's not going to, because if there's the movies to go to, and there's bowling, and there's rock climbing, and there's a roller rink, and axe throwing, and all these things in my community. I want all those places to succeed, because I want people to get into their heads and into their routines that they go out once a week. Because if they start going out once a week, and now they've come to me and they've done 3 or 4 of the others, they're going to come back to me 5 weeks later, versus just going out once every 6 months, right? Because we are all working together, and we all want each other to succeed, we actually get more people through all of our doors more often. And and some examples of this are when Mike and I changed the admissions for the school groups, and to get people into the park to make it more efficient. Because we were provincially funded, we let people know at the ROM and the AGO what we were doing, and they adopted some of those practices to make it easier at those places. So by the time I got to the ROM, they had already implemented some of the school practices we had. They had the schools coming in a separate entrance, and they were getting them all organized, and it was suddenly they had already done that. And then I was just able to come in, and I changed things for the front line, which had big queue lines. But even how you run queue lines, right? There's different ways to do it, and you can share best practices. I'm sure Mike's got way more examples from a larger scale.
Yeah, I think, the industry, and, we'll get into a little bit later on too, about how those sort of things get shared, or what, sort of associations in ways that the attractions industry organize itself. But I think, at the top levels, at those big attractions, there's, I'll say there's little tolerance for bad operators in the industry, because if you're an amusement park operator, then, and if there's someone out there who's breaking all the rules or is running, getting in the news all the time because people are getting hurt or doing all those different things, then it detracts from the industry. The prime example would be like the water parks industry, where word of mouth is a big thing. So if you have if you have high incident rates at a particular water park in your region or in North America, and it makes the news all the time, it will affect your own business because people will be less akin to going to them. One of the biggest risks you have in aquatic facilities, apart from drowning, is that if you're not handling your water properly in terms of water chemistry and quality, then you have these large number of bathers, you could get outbreaks of all kinds of disease from the E. coli and cryptosporidium and all these nasty bugs that can make people sick and for some people could kill them. And if you had an outbreak that was linked back to your water quality, then you're pretty much done as an operator, especially for the season, but it'll have a spillover effect. So, if a water park, nearby, because it's in the news and say, well, this is a big deal. And, every news outlets, they're doing a report about how 50 children got sick and all this other stuff happened, then that's going to have a knock-on effect to your own business if you're operating in the same realm. So we do share information and best practices, one, because we want the industry as a whole to do better, and to improve ourselves, because the best way you learn is by learning from other people's experiences. But at the same time, it's a little bit of self-preservation, right? And making sure that, all of the operators are sort of, doing their best to make sure that the reputation of the industry is being upheld. And, there's certainly, like I said, there's a low tolerance for operators that don't. And, that, tends to be where, we looking for legislative bodies or people to intercede on our behalf to make sure that everybody's got the same set of rules and they're playing that, because we all want to be good and responsible operators, or we hope, but obviously sometimes there are folks out there that have different agendas and they need to be, held in check.
Yeah. Well, I even got to the point of Ontario Place, what do they call it, the Super 6 or the Super 7, or they in all the attractions, all these competing attractions, every week shared their numbers, shared shared what their plans were for the weeks going forward in terms of any events or any marketing or anything like that. They shared all of this data back and forth, so each of the operators could prepare, because if something was something big was going to happen at Ontario Place, there was going to be a spillover effect because we were going to be driving more people in, so that the AGO and the CN Tower and Wonderland was in it for a while too, if I remember. So here we go with some private companies mixed in with these provincial organizations, all sharing like really proprietary information, like attendance numbers and revenue numbers and group numbers and all these things, to try to and then work together to figure out patterns and try to make sure that everyone was ready for what was coming on. Because if we didn't know that there was a huge event happening, but someone else did, then we would now know about it a month before and be able to staff accordingly, knowing that there was, a Caribana type of an event coming in that wasn't a yearly. All right, sorry. Next one is no department can work on their own or operate in a silo. So there needs to be cooperation, coordination is required for overall success. And it doesn't matter the size of the attraction, right? At Glow Zone, it can be as simple as, I did a party booking. It's always me that gets in trouble because I don't do it right. I only do it once a week. But I take a party booking and there's a special request, and I type it in a note and that's it, and don't actually talk about it. Or worse yet, I don't type it as a note, because that happens too. The party shows up on a Saturday looking for whatever that special thing was, and they go, what are you talking about? Well, Chuck said, and now suddenly they're scrambling to make the customer happy with something that I promised and then didn't communicate out. All right, so there's an owner. That's an owner screw up, really, right? I'm the owner. They're going to try to make it work because I'm an owner, and I've said that it's, you know, we would do it, but that's on me for not communicating that there's going to be the special request. And they knew a week out that they needed to extend the room size a little bit, or they needed to, you know, order some additional toppings for the pizza or whatever it was. And now they're stuck scrambling. We talked a little bit last week about the sprinklers going off during the fireworks because it hadn't been communicated properly, or back and forth, or someone just forgot. Maybe it was communicated and there was just a screw up. But every department has a role to play. And once again, Mike, I'm going to defer to you because you probably have way more examples about this working and not working than I do.
Well, yeah. Well, I'd say, you know, this is a conversation that probably happens a million times a day at my work about, you know, communication and about, you know, sort of interdepartmental organization. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, you know, from where we sit right now in class and we're talking about it, we can say, yeah, that's super important. We should do it all the time. In reality, it's the bigger the organization or the more like complex the operation, the more difficult it gets to have that level of communication. And, you know, where Chuck gave a very simple, you know, example from his own sort of experience, right? Where there aren't that many people, you know, involved in Chuck's operation. But there still can be a communication breakdown. You know, when you start to multiply that across multiple departments and multiple operators and all these different things, you know, the opportunity for those mistakes gets greater. And, you know, so, you know, operate like parks and attractions need to have systems in place, right? To communicate, to, you know, organize information. You know, at Wonderland, we have like some simple tools that go out, right? Where it's, you know, we meet weekly, and it's an important meeting called the operations meeting where, you know, we talk about what's coming up, you know, and anybody who's got, you know, an event or an activity going on needs to speak about it. You know, they probably send about 7 emails about it before anyway, but this is their last chance to basically have FaceTime with everybody and say, I don't know if you've read this, but we're doing this and it's going to happen on this day. And, you know, if we need to have a side meeting, let's do it. But, you know, and that everybody can sit there and look at it from their own perspective and say, hey, hold on, you know, or there's an issue here that we didn't think about, down to just on a daily basis where we publish, you know, everybody gets an email link every day that gives them what we call the daily operations plan. And, you know, it lists everything that's going on that day, who's in, who, you know, who's responsible for certain areas, you know, we call duty officers, you know, timing of activities, that kind of stuff. But, you know, the coordination it requires to make all that happen is important. And, you know, I can give you numerous examples where sometimes that fails and all of a sudden you're left scrambling in the end because someone didn't get that message or didn't read it right or whatever. So it's very difficult. And yeah, if you're a department within that operation and you don't communicate what you're doing, inevitably you're not gonna succeed because you need so many different things. And we look at those lists of departments that we talked about, right? All of them are busy and they have their systems going on. And, you know, as you know, somebody who works in that environment, I don't have the time to run all those bits and pieces. So though you have to trust that those departments are doing their jobs, you know, that, you know, if your job is to take care of admissions, then, you know, that you need to take care of it and, you know, and have information from the departments that need you to sort of explain what their events are or what the timing is, or, you know, if there's any rules or communication that needs to go out. Because yeah, somebody like myself in facilities, I'm not going to be able to have any impact on that, but I have my own job to deal with in terms of making sure that segment of the plan or operations is being upheld.
And then, so that leads really well right into number 5, which is operations has to be both proactive and reactive. It doesn't matter how absolutely prepared you are for the day, right? So here we are, we have our operating procedures at Glow Zone for how we're running our birthday parties and who's working what position and what things, you know, where everything's going. And it's busy on a Saturday and it's running like clockwork. And we were proactive, which is making it run like clockwork. Everyone knew what they were supposed to be doing. All the parties were called on Wednesday. Everything is confirmed. And then at 12:30, the internet goes out. Well, that's the only way we take payments, unless it's cash. So now we have, now we have to react to being stuck and fixing a problem or switching processes so that we can make things happen. Or the power goes out for 20 minutes, which backs everything up. So now we have to react and change our plans and operationalize. The power comes back on, but now we're a game behind. We still have 15 birthday parties to do. How do we get it all juggled out? Or a group of 30 walks in. Now, a group of 30 at Wonderland is nothing, but if you're already packed in and a group of 30 comes off the street and wants to play, now it's a matter of, okay, let's see how we can juggle you in. We certainly don't want to turn people away, but now we're reacting to a change in what we thought was going to be our operating process for that day. And Wonderland probably goes through that, with weather and other things.
Oh yeah, I mean there are so many elements that are out of your control, and whether it's weather or it's something to do with people, maybe more show up or less show up, or you have staffing issues, or you and in a park like Wonderland you could have example would be we have these things called early ride time. So groups are booking their events and they get access to specific areas of the park before everybody else does, and they're paying for that. Well, what happens if the ride that they're paying for all of a sudden during the morning inspection has a problem? And we need to deal with that before we can put riders on it. So you need to have contingencies built in, but sometimes you just, as an operations person at a park, you need to be able to know what levers you can pull. So you need to think on the fly, and you need to understand what's required to pull off, whatever, idea that you have in your head. You can't just walk over to something and turn it on. My favorite one that you get sometimes is, in the early part of the season, the water park isn't open every day, and it'll be open on weekends only. And there's a lot of reasons for it. The biggest one is that most of the people that staff the water park, the lifeguards, are still in school, so you can't run it. But you'll inevitably get a day sometime in like May where it's hotter than it should be. It's a 30-degree day in May, and there's a whole horde of people at the park and most people don't read emails, they don't read the website, they come expecting all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can tell you people show up on days we're closed still thinking we're open, but and always the question is, well, how it's going to be hot, why didn't you open the water park? And in those cases, it's like, one, you can't explain to somebody the complexity involved in just turning on a 30-acre water park, but sometimes in terms of being reactive, you have to understand what's possible, and and make decisions based on that. So maybe you can't do that, but maybe you can extend the hours of another attraction that can alleviate that load or do those kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, you have to be able to understand your operation enough to make those reactive decisions, that you can pull those levers, or you can say, no, that's not what we're going to do. Or maybe a decision from one end sounds good, but then it opens up all kinds of possibilities for other issues, or sort of safety protocols or things like that have to be followed that can't be curtailed. So that's where you need to have a good grasp of what you're dealing with, in terms of your own facility and what the rules are around it, and what things can you do really quickly and make decisions. And there's numerous times in the day where we'll make a change on the fly to something going on because we're reacting to something, and you'll never know. Like, sometimes you have, one morning this year we had a vehicle drive into a structure in the park right before we're opening. And, we obviously have to clear all that up and make it safe before we can get people into that area. But we also have a schedule to keep. So, it's about coordinating with all these different departments about how do we get this place cleaned up, get the, the damage cleared, or at least, taken away so that people don't see it. And at the same time, we're not impacting things around the park, because maybe people have to get through that area to get to something that's already been pre-booked. So what is the alternate route, all those kinds of things. So it happens a lot.
Yeah, well, I remember we were at Disney World once riding the tram, because that tram can take you with that elevated train takes you around to all the different parks. And one of them got diverted because there was a car accident, not even a bad car accident, but just a car accident that was in view of the tram, so people could look down and see the car accident. And because Disney World is the happiest place on earth, they actually operationally reacted to that, changed the entire schedule and routing until the car accident was cleared up, because it would have taken away from the overall experience. So we talk about the more you can prepare and the more that you can document when something goes sideways. So you've got your regular operating procedures. You've got your, in a perfect world, this is what our day is going to look like, and here's what everyone has to do to make that day go perfectly. But every time that there is something that goes sideways, documenting it and coming up with a procedure makes really good sense. So at GlowZone, when the internet went down back in the day, we have the old style, and you guys, I don't even know if you guys even know about them. There are paper slips, and you would we put the credit card in, you run it through, they sign it, and then later on that day, when the internet came back on, we would enter in their information and we would charge their credit card when the machine came on. We still have those if we need it, but these days our staff all have cell phones with them, and they'll do a mobile hotspot which links into the machine, and the machine will continue to work just because their phones are now linking to it. So when the internet goes down, it doesn't stop us from being able to do the transactions, which are the big part of our business. When the power went off, remember I was saying the power went off that one time, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get the bathroom lights back on because they were motion sensors. Well, it turns out that it just needed to stay off for 45 seconds to a minute just to reset itself and then get turned on. Well, guess what? That's now hey, when the power goes out, if this is the problem, here's the process to fix it, so that no one else needs to panic about, oh my goodness, we're going to have to shut down because there's no access to the bathrooms anymore. So, it makes good sense to document, and the secondary procedures based on all the things you never expected to happen are good to have as well. And those are some of the things that get shared across all the different parks, because something crazy that happens to you might not have happened to a different park yet or a different attraction. And you can say, this happened here and this is how we've had to take care of it, and give them that step up. Anything to add to that, Mike?
No, I think that, that's a pretty good way to describe all that.
All right. And then last but not least is that the theme guides each attraction's operating plans and procedures. People go into an attraction with a preconceived notion of what they're going to do. And I think the zoo and Canada's Wonderland are two good examples of operating differently, right? You go into the zoo not for thrills and high-paced energy. If that happens to you, it is by accident and probably scared you to death, right? Because suddenly you were being chased by a lion that got out of its cage. You don't want that. You're not looking for an adrenaline rush when you go to the zoo. You are looking for a peaceful, tranquil, educational, oh my goodness, look at these animals, this is beautiful experience. And they build their operations around that, making sure the paths are cleared, making sure that there's lots of wayfinding so you don't feel that you are lost in that park, because it is so huge. There's all these different paths, and they're like, oh, you follow these footprints all the way through and you'll get to see what you want to see. The show times are well posted, so you can plan your day to get to something you want to see, versus Wonderland, which is all about thrills and not spills, but lots of thrills and activity, and just, I think the best way to describe it is organized chaos, right? You feel frenetic. Is that a good, well, that's a great word.
Sure.
That's
I like it.
that's a very good word today. Frenetic.
That's
It might actually not be the right word, but it sounds good. So it's meant to make you feel energized, right? Scared, energized, full of anticipation, and they build it out. Bright colors, music pumping through the park. You know, the rides make noise. You're hearing, it doesn't matter where you are in that park, you're hearing someone screaming, right? They built when they had, I don't, do you still have the swing thing? Is that gone? I can't remember if that's gone, the big swing.
Yeah, we have it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That people pay extra money to get dropped on that massive swing, and it swings right up over people. Right? There's always something happening. It's a completely different environment, and they've planned it to that environment. Disney is supposed to be the happiest place on earth, and that's how it is. That's how they build theirs out. It's the same thing. Very, very colorful. More muted when it comes to the screaming, because screaming is not always happy. It is in this case, but it's still, people can get a little freaked out. Always some activity going on, right? There's a band playing, or there's costume people. There's all these different things. You do not see a piece of litter at Disney World. It doesn't happen. They just don't. They have people just very inconspicuously, just all the time sweeping. I remember, was it you that was saying this, Mike? That was talking about, you know, people always feeling they just leave their strollers and their purses and stuff all around. And I think maybe it was my dad was asking once a long time ago, said, like, don't people steal here? He goes, oh yeah, all the time. But interspersed with the crowd are security people that just look like you, like any other patron. And that's all they're doing all day is they kind of hang out in the areas where people typically leave their strollers and items because they're going on a ride, and they sit there with a coffee, and they're making sure that no one's stealing your stuff. Like, and no one sees it because it's just part of their process. What do you got to add to that, Mike? Because I'm running out of steam stuff up. But that was a good story. Like when I didn't even realize that they did that at Disney World.
I think, you know, looping back, I think, you know, as you mentioned, I mean, what you are as an attraction guides how you kind of approach your attraction, right? You know, you're doing similar things, but maybe doing it in a different way, or providing that, you know, that it is important to kind of know your environment, right? And you know, like you mentioned, I mean, you're obviously you have similar operations needs in a museum as you do in an amusement park, but you may do them with a different flavor, or a different you know, sort of way, because of your audience or what you're trying to project, right? I mean, I think it would feel tremendously out of place, right, if you went to the ROM and you know, they're cranking the music, or you know, their signage and all this other stuff looked like Canada's Wonderland, right? It just wouldn't fit it, you know, and you know, so, you know, and it wouldn't match the experience. But, you know, also, you know, your you know, what you do kind of reflects on how, you know, what your priorities are, right? And some of you guys talked about in their discussion about, you know, what your security needs are might change because of what, you know, what you've got going on, or, you know, or when you're dealing with an issue. You know, some places, you know, if you're an indoor attraction, you don't really care if the weather's bad outside. But if you're an outdoor attraction, you certainly will. So yeah, I think, you know, that as we sort of, and I think we've kind of really narrowed that down, is that, you know, there's just there is a lot of variability, and it has to do a lot with, you know, just basically putting a different spin on similar concepts to match your attraction and what you are. You know, and that's always really important.
Yeah. Okay, so before we move on, do you guys have any questions or comments about what we've just talked about, these conclusions? Or did something surprise you when you were doing your research and putting it together? You suddenly had you put two and two together, and you came up with something neat. Feel free to go off mute and chat, or if you don't feel like going off mute, you feel free to just type something in the chat box here. They could also, we have no idea. They could also all have gone away and are playing Fortnite or something, getting coffee.
It's possible.
Yeah. Okay, we know one's here.
Proof
Excellent.
of life right there. All right.
That's awesome.
What time we got? Do we need to take a couple minutes, Chuck?
Yeah, we could take a couple minute break here. What time is it?
9:30.
9:30. Okay, so it's 9:27. So at 9:35, we will come back and we will get to our next slide, which is going to be a Padlet. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about interdepartmental coordination, and we're going to give you another scenario on a Padlet, and we're going to see if we can start to connect some of the dots that we've been putting together. All right, so with that in mind, Mike and I probably both go on mute as well here and turn off our cameras, and we will see you back here in 6 minutes. We got another minute here, Michael. We've got the Padlet link in the chat there.
See it. Yes, my DC mail is still not working. Kelly told me I can talk to them at the something place there,
Oh,
but
well, that's where that first guy went and figured out how to get online, right?
yeah, so I'll have to go see them next, well, 2 weeks from now, because next week's a holiday because it's Thanksgiving.
Yes. Well, that's true. That is true. All right, 9:35. Hopefully everyone is back. You can give a thumbs up on your thing, or you can write that you're back in the chat, or whatever the heck you want to do. There we go.
Send up a flare.
That is awesome. That's yes. All right. So, oh, I like that. Look at all these fun little things. Trumpets. I'm gonna put these back over here. Got lots going on. All right. So feel free to click into the Padlet. I'm going to share that screen. Let's see if that works. Is that showing the Padlet?
It is.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, so here's our scenario, and I think this will be a lot of fun. So we're going to start with part one. So in an effort to boost midweek sales, Canada's Wonderland senior management decides to stay open until 11 p.m. every Wednesday in June and end the night with a 15-minute fireworks display. So part one, you're just going to add in what departments need to be part of the decision making. So let's just start with that. So just start typing in. The link was right there. Hopefully everyone got it, and you can link in and start typing away.
So right now we're just looking at just the departments, right, Chuck? Not
Yep, just the departments. And once we've got those in, what we're going to do is we're going to add comments underneath, and we're going to talk about what considerations they need to make. Yep, that's a good one. So far, we've got one.
no, there's some at the bottom there, Chuck.
Oh, is
It's
there?
good,
Oh,
it's
why is it going at the? Oh, that's from last year. That's Knopf. I gotta delete that one.
There's some new ones there, though. Yeah.
All right, hold on. Those were all a minute ago. That's my problem. I didn't catch that one when I was deleting. So Knopf is a graduate who's actually got herself a full-time job right out of school, working at an attraction full-time, which is excellent. Oh man. Gotta pull all these up.
Knopf, that legend.
The legend, yeah. Oh, come on.
They drop them right down there, don't they?
They do. Well, I don't know why. All right, there's more security. Yeah. I'll put them here. Excellent. Yep, that's a good one. You gotta, at the end of the day, you still need to be able to get the people to come in. Nice. Together. Just for sake of ease, I'm just going to delete one because it's a duplicate. There we go. Finance. All right, I think that's a pretty good cross section. Mike, what else needs to be in there?
I'm looking here across this thing here.
Maintenance facilities, grounds.
Entertainment. I would say I would add in maybe merchandise.
Yeah, we got rides in there now.
Retail operations.
Mhm.
Should we, let me see who else we got here. Security, good.
Yeah.
Do we
IT.
have- I think we'll have this.
Start putting a couple of these together. Got marketing, communications, safety, and loss prevention. Security, safety. Some things up here. All right. Yeah. This, I'm gonna start to lump some of these together a little bit.
Give it some categories, some.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to I think we can probably, all these are fairly similar. So I'm just trying to think, because no point writing out, we'll just do comments under one. So if we just stick with safety and loss prevention, knowing that safety, security, and all of that are part of that, then we can put those all into one. Emergency procedures and operations, that's kind of, they go hand in hand. Operations is what the course is. So every one of these things, people are going to have to change their operations for that night, their typical operations. Emergency procedures is probably can be under there, right? Or it could be risk management. And risk management is an interesting thing because it's not really a department, but it's something that is a process within operations of each of these other departments.
Just the no fun group of the park,
Well, it's not the no fun group. It's the what do you do in case of, right? Right. So okay, let's say a microburst or a tornado is heading towards Wonderland. The customer service department has emergency procedures for that, right? The grounds department has emergency procedures for that. So that's more on the risk management side. That is actually an operating process more than it is a department.
That's correct. Yeah.
So and hope, does everyone understand that? Hopefully you understand what we're talking about. That we have departments. This is an operating process within the department. Does that make sense? Hopefully, some hands up and stuff on that.
Yeah, I think I think maybe it was written, and I don't know who posted it up, but yeah, maybe it's more akin to what we posted as safety and loss prevention, where they are.
Yes.
They're sort of more specifically attuned to, we'll say, emergency type situations as opposed to. But yes, every department would have its own procedure for any type of emergency, and if maybe if your example of weather would be an example of that every weather will affect every department, and every department will tune their operation to deal with it, and that is their procedure. There may be sort of one department who, let's say, has some oversight on the overall picture, but it all depends on each individual department, as I mentioned before, doing their job. that, this is their procedure and they're going to follow it. And, I'll say, in my environment, we begin to understand which each department's procedure for that is, and that creates a sense of predictability for common events that happen, like weather and things like that. Obviously, there are things that are not common, that you wouldn't, that you hope that it's not predictable, but at least, maybe you've drilled it. So fires or, injuries, or, even like, casualty situations that you hope you never have to see, but you've drilled it so that what all the players are doing. What you're doing is sort of dependent in some cases on what they're doing, but always safety and loss prevention kind of have I'll call it like an oversight responsibility to make sure that all of those individual plans are being executed.
All right, so I think that's a really good cross section of what departments. And first of all, congratulations, that's a lot of departments you guys are listed out, which is excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so part 2 is now in the comments sections is what operational considerations in each department focused on. So admissions, as an example, we can add a comment, and that would probably be something like, well, they're going to have to be open late, right? Late window or ticket opening.
Yeah, and later events are I'll say from a practical example that if you're an admissions department, most people that are leaving the park at the end of the day, not coming in.
That's
So
right.
they are a department that staffs heavily in the morning and tapers their staffing down as the day goes on and keeps a minimal amount of people in the evening. But if you're going to run a fireworks show at 11 p.m., then you may all of a sudden see people, especially pass holders, arriving specifically for the show. Yeah. And you need to be able to handle that. And your normal deployment of staff may not be sufficient to do that. So, if you think it's going to be a regular night, then, you're going to get into trouble, with one cashier and one person checking tickets or something, maybe. That would have worked, every other night of the year, but on that night it doesn't.
Okay, so just go to it, give you some time and just start going through all those different departments and try to figure out what are some of the considerations they're going to need to plan for and operationalize during to stay open till 11 in June instead of their typical, let's say it was 8. So they're adding 3 hours to their night.
See one in there. Did my comment go in? I don't know what just happened.
Your comment, did you do grounds, Mike? Because if you
Yeah.
did, then it went in. There's some FMV.
How do I go back? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little odd the way it's working. So like when you click on it now, it's going to take you to a different screen.
Yep.
And when you're done putting something in, you just press the X over here and then you'll get back to the main one and then you can pick another department and go.
Gotcha.
All right. Hopefully it's not just you populating stuff. Hopefully everyone else is in there. And we'll be able to go through some things. Have we lost you guys? Like, are you guys understanding what we're getting at? And we're okay with it? Hopefully.
Oh, I see some comments in there. So
Yeah, no, it's all good. give you guys a minute to do that. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I think, Michael, should we start to go through and, all right, so we're good with, feel free to keep going because there's not a ton in here. Let's start with one that has 0 and start adding stuff in. Feel free to add them in as on this one if you would like. So I'm the customer service department. What do I need to think about knowing that we're going to be open 3 hours later? What's going to be different? Well, we know that there's extended hours, right? So we need to staff properly.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to understand where the fireworks are taking place so that you know where the complaints are going to come from. So if they're way in the back somewhere else, yeah, that's a good one. Explain hours and any changes to the schedule. That's good. So you want to try to be proactive, which is awesome. They're going to have to be prepared to direct people, right? I can add that in. So you're going to direct.
Oh yeah, big one we get whenever we run a fireworks show and for real is, obviously the same question. What time do they start? Well,
yeah,
11 p.m. like the sign. And where should I go to see them? How long do they last? You name it.
Yeah.
Is the park going to be open after the fireworks show?
So basically FAQ section.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh shoot.
Does my ticket get me into this for free? Any of those? Yeah. I mean, this is basically answering people's questions, right? So, so they need to be involved in that decision tree to be able to make those things, or even to understand impacts on existing promises, right?
Yeah. No, actually, Mike, that's a good point. You can't have an FAQ section. Like, you can't have all those answers written out beforehand unless you communicate with everyone else. Right? Where are the fireworks? Like, so where will be the best place to see it? Right? When are they going to start? How long are they going to last? All of these things, someone from customer service needs to find from someone else in the operations in the building or in Canada's Wonderland, all the answers to all of those questions that they know are going to happen. Because if they don't have them, it's going to be a fiasco, and customer service is going to get inundated with questions and angry people. What do you mean you don't know? Right?
You're pretty terrible customer service department if you can't answer those
Right, and you can't answer those basic questions. But the only way to get those basic questions answered in advance is to talk to the people who are doing it. Right? So that is a you know, I'm glad we started here, because this is a really good example of how one department will suffer if they don't have the information from every other department. And that's on a daily basis, right? The customer service. Well, where's it busiest in the park? At what time? They probably get asked that. Where's the best place to go? How do we do this? How do we do this? It's all in there. And they need to know how everyone else is operating so that they can give the customers the best advice to have a great time. All right, what do we got next? Food and beverage. I like both of those. Yep. They have enough supplies to they can run to 11 o'clock. Yes, if you're running the donut shop or the chip truck, you know, where they do the spiral cut chips, which are so good, Mike. I love those things. Anyway, if they typically stock to be sold out at 8 is when they close, and now they're open till 11, and they expect another 20,000 people, off they go. They need to have enough supplies. So once again, who do they tie in with? They need to know how many people are expected. So they got to talk to the admissions people or the group sales people and probably the marketing people who have formulas to track their engagement to get a sense of how many people do they expect to come. They also will probably need to check the weather forecast, because if it's supposed to be rainy and crap, they might not need as much. All these different things are all interrelated to help these guys make sure that they have the right stuff. Specialty menu items, what a great idea. Once again, they want to find out who do they expect are coming. Is it an older crowd, right? Because if it's an older crowd, maybe they don't want pizza or hot dogs. Maybe there is something you can put on that you can charge a premium for, which is going to be very conducive to the people that are going to be there. Maybe it's going to be chilly in June one evening. So they will.
Oh, I thought you said it was going to be chilly as in they were going to sell chili. I was like,
no. I was like chilly as in temperature wise, because maybe
the Red Bull with
oh, that'd be very nice. Oof, starving. You know, hot chocolates or different things like that.
Yeah, and you know, examples. It also include you know, food and beverage needs to know where the show is going to be or where people are going to congregate, because they might have to bring product to them. So you know, when you see those like mobile carts and people on the on the street selling popcorn and stuff, because maybe, you know, for a show like that, people are going to camp basically, right? They're going to find their spot and wait for a while, and they're not going to want to leave to go to your location. So you're going to bring certain items that you can sell remotely there, right? So an example would be like, you know, wheeling out a popcorn cart and putting it on the street where you would not normally do it.
And then lighting becomes an issue, right? Because now this is at night. So now you've got a cart. Where are you going to set up? You have to set up where you have natural light so people can, not natural light, sorry. Night, that doesn't work. But you have lights. So you're standing under a light standard or something so that the people can see what you're selling and you can get them to pay and do all of those things. So because suddenly you're doing stuff in the dark when you're not normally in the dark. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What do we got here? Turning off the sprinklers.
Which one is that? Maintenance?
Yeah, whoever did that was awesome. Thank you. That made my day. Right, and good. Alterations to the park lighting schedules. That's brilliant. All right, what else are they going to have to, Mike? You do facilities. What else you got to do?
What else do we got to do? Well, there's all kinds of stuff, but yeah, I think those are those are good ones. Lighting schedules is important. You know, everything's automated now, right? So if you're going to change your operating hours, you may have to change schedules to a whole bunch of things, because obviously, you know, just like everyone else, you want to save your costs on utilities and energy usage or whatever, right? So you're ramping down air conditioning systems and lighting systems and everything, and they're based on a standard schedule, and that's not going to be the same. Or, you know, the maintenance department may have to bring power or water or utilities to a location that is temporary because of the event itself. So when, you know, Chuck mentioned like the location of your popcorn cart or your whatever, they may need power to run that. And so that's where maintenance department would come in and, you know, about those kinds of things. Or there may be different sort of props or things that need to be set up, fencing or stages or portable lighting, you name it. There's all kinds of considerations in there. So even cutting the grass, you know, when do you do it?
Good point.
So, because most of the time you're sitting on the hills, you know, and all those kinds of things. So do you know, that sometimes has an important, you know, sort of thing for like the landscape department about, you know, when are they going to do their maintenance on those areas? Are they going to do it before, after? What's the impact of that? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you don't want to plant the new flower bed the night before the fireworks show because it's going to get trampled. So
Entertainment. Good. Yeah. What's the music going to be? What ambiance do you want? And are there speakers in that area? What's MC? Is that music?
like a master of ceremonies type
Master of ceremonies. Yeah, that's true. You can have a master of ceremonies. And where are they going to set up? And how are they going to, you're right. You need to think about that. How are you doing it? Right? Is there a countdown? Is there all those things? These are what entertainment they're going to program this fireworks display so that it's entertaining prior to and then they do some good stuff to get people out of the park right afterwards. All the show elements, you're right. The music, the theme, is there staging, all that sort of stuff that makes it a spectacle. And then of course the fireworks show itself. So bringing in a third party contractor to run the show that doesn't burn down your water park. So you know there's a lot to it. The entertainment, and also what other entertainment, how are you programming those extra 3 hours, 2.5 hours, right? They need to program the extra 3 hours. I think that's an important piece of the puzzle as well. And I think you've got that, but what exactly are you doing? Because if you are going back to entertainment needs to figure out who's coming in. Is it a different crowd than normal? And if it's a different crowd than normal, how do we program it? Do we need to bring in different entertainment because now it's suddenly a bunch of people our age and not just the typical 16 to 25-year-olds that are coming in? How do we program it differently? And contests, is there a way to keep people entertained with contests or different things depending on who the crowd is? I think that's a great idea. Mike, we're good with that one?
I think so.
Excellent. Admissions, so late tickets. So we talked about it. Do we start with them? No.
No, we talked customer service at the beginning.
All right. Okay, so admissions, you got late ticket opening. So that's basically staffing levels, right?
Oh yeah, we did talk about that.
Yeah, so levels. And that's about it, right? Or separate tickets, right? There could be a separate ticket price, special ticket price.
Yeah, there could be.
Right, so come in after 8 and it's only $20 or something to come do it. And if that's the case, they have to make sure that that's all set up with IT and like there's so many intricate parts. Anything else with that, Mike?
No, I think we got that.
Okay, so I gotta go back here. So we started with customer service. So we're gonna go work our way backwards. Yeah, so marketing PR. So they need to communicate to the public the time of the show and get people excited about it through social media and that sort of thing. They should, they often don't, but they should coordinate with the entertainment department. Oh, what are you doing show wise? And it goes back and forth because so the entertainment says, I don't know what we're doing show wise because I don't know who's coming. Who do you expect to come? Okay, we expect these people. And then entertainment will then fix it. So they need, the marketing PR needs to do research to determine the types of people coming and a general understanding of the numbers to expect. And that's often done by marketing and communications in collaboration with sales. And usually marketing and sales go hand in hand. What else?
Another thing that, you know, from a public relations standpoint, that
that's a good
occurs,
one. Yeah.
what do we get?
Special guests and VIPs.
Yes, dealing
Yes.
with that.
They have to deal with that. Yeah.
But the other thing that is, someone needs to talk to things that are external to your park. You know, if we keep with the Canada's Wonderland, you know, example,
Yeah.
since this is where that exercise happens, and this is real world, is that we need to talk to York Region transportation, because we're going to create congestion in areas that don't normally see it at that time of day. And you know, people tend to stop on the side of the road too to watch fireworks shows and things like that. So like in a real world example like Canada's Wonderland, we deal with York Region Transportation and York Regional Police about keeping roadways clear, because there's a hospital across the street from the park. And so the police need to know that there's a show going on, because they actually close parts of the roads around us to make sure that ambulances can get to the hospital, and that the ambulance dispatchers have the information in their system, so that if they're being dispatched to the hospital on an emergency run, that they know what route to take. You know, an example from Ontario Place is we had to communicate with Billy Bishop Airport that we were running a fireworks show, so that the aircraft weren't taking off and landing into the show. But yeah, public relations usually deals with those external stakeholders to make sure, you know, sometimes if there's a community association around you too, you might have to talk to them about noise, or, you know, that you're going to be running later than normal. So, you know, people who are living in your neighborhood know that it's going to be a later night, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of factors that roll in there.
Yeah, and securing additional parking. Yeah, exactly. And then letting the OPP know so they can keep people moving on the 400, which can also become a parking lot. That's good. HR and training. So human resources, to make sure they have enough employees to run everything until 11. So when they're hiring, they're going to say, hey, in
Can you
June,
work till 11?
yeah, can you work till 11 on Wednesdays in June? That'll be one of their questions. So that you're right, they have enough. Crowd control, that would be, yeah, they have to make sure they have enough staff for security in different departments so that the entire place can run.
Yep.
And then, you know, then same thing with special training. Here's how it's going to run if you're working at night when the sun goes down, right? Because it's a different thing. And they're gonna work on the scheduling and the payroll. Exactly. Good. Grounds, post-event cleanup, but also pre-event setup, right? So yeah. So now your groundskeepers who normally start at 8 o'clock at night and work till midnight, a 4-hour shift, because that's how long it takes to clean everything up. Now they're probably gonna have to work from 11 o'clock, probably till 5 or 6 o'clock, because there's going to be just that much more cleanup to be done in a specific area. And for some reason, when the sun goes down, people just don't think that garbage cans exist anymore, right? Unless the majority of people are still very good about doing it. But when you suddenly have 20,000 people in a very small area, it's easy, you know,
bit of a mess
to make sure. But that's the other thing, they have to make sure, or they want to keep adding, like make sure that the, you know, during the event, you know, the garbages are emptied. I just spelled it wrong. Are empty, etc. Yeah, and they might be in different areas. They need to know Where are people going to be hanging out? Where should they move garbage cans? Where do they need to congregate? What other things can go, like, should they be expected to clean up? Is there going to be, hopefully it's close to a washroom, so people are going to the washroom, not just peeing in the bush and that kind of stuff.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Anything else on that, Mike?
No, I think, we talked, just there's that consideration, and the fireworks shows make a lot of mess, not only just from the public, but they're not entirely, let's say that elements of the show inevitably hit the ground. So casings and bits of paper and all kinds of stuff from the show. And, I've seen enough that, depending on where the wind blows, those items may fall in different parts of your park. But we have a whole post-event cleanup that has to take place, and it's an overnight thing. And it's a lot, especially when you burn a building down too. At the same time, you get a lot more cleanup to do.
Man, you lose one building, Mike, and you're just never going to live it down.
Yeah, I'm never going to live that down, am I?
Oh, well. Finance, preparing a fireworks budget and handling overtime, staff pay, etc. Excellent. That, you know what? That makes good sense. So finance, at the end of the day, especially for a for-profit, you need to know what the expenses are going to be. And is it worth doing? If we're going to open for those extra 3 hours and the fireworks are going to cost $50,000 and it's going to cost you X amount for your staff and your lights and all of those things, and it turns out that it's a $300,000 investment, $100,000 an hour, and you do the numbers and you're only going to make $250,000, you probably aren't going to do it. And finance are the ones that help make those decisions. Marketing is always going to inflate the numbers so it looks profitable. Right?
We're going to do 1 billion people.
That's marketing's job, is to be optimistic that we are going to just be the most successful thing ever. And we're going to bring in 100,000 people. It's going to make $1 million for your 300,000. Finance people look at it from the exact opposite scale. What is the minimum number of people we need to bring through here to break even? And it's just say it's 150,000 or it's 25,000 people. What are the chances of us getting 25,000 people? And they're going to be doing all sorts of numbers in their own research. And there are finance people, especially forecasters, are negative people. Not personally, but just they have to look at their
Nobody
jobs.
sits at their table during lunch.
That's right. Because the buck sometimes stops with the finance person. Why'd you let that go forward? Well, because marketing told me it was going to make $1 million. Well, marketing, you should have said no. Like, it's just one of those things. So yeah, that is finance's job. They also need, now at Wonderland, it's no longer cash. So they don't need to worry about extra security and moving money around, but they need to make sure that the machines are all up and running later and all that sort of stuff. And they also need to realize their closeout for that night is now going to be at 11:30 or midnight versus versus the typical 8:30 or 9 once everyone's left. So, and when you're doing reconciliations, you got to make sure you still close out your books on that day and not at 12:01, because then all of that money gets pushed into the following day, and they have to make all these weird adjustments and stuff. Rides, early or late shutdowns. Exactly. What rides can stay open till when? And what rides need to be shut down early or during the fireworks show? And the weather plays a factor. Is it some rides can't run in the cold? Now it's June, so it shouldn't be too cold, but if you get a cold snap, it might be more difficult. And all of that kind of stuff. And of course, staffing for it. And then afterwards, there probably needs to be inspections of the rides that could be in the fallout zone from all the firework debris.
Yep. At Wonderland, we've got, when we do fireworks shows, that there's all kinds of logistics about it, and some of it is because, when they start to set up the show, when they actually make the show or the fireworks in a state that they could fire, that sometimes is a little earlier than the show itself, a couple hours. If there are rides that are in the area, then, then those have to shut down because we don't want it, and it's happened where, a shell gets fired, inadvertently. And you don't want the ride in that zone, or the rides need to shut down for the show. So you have to communicate that to the people maybe in the queue, or close them early so that nobody's standing there waiting to go on this thing, or even on it when the show's going on.
Yeah.
So
Perfect. Yep. Merchandise retail, late store hour, limited time merch. Yep. So suddenly you're doing, you're going to have 4 fireworks shows. You're going to be open late 4 times. How many glow sticks do you want to buy? How many, of things that are glowing or light up, because you're going to sell a ton of those on those specific days. So you do need to bring in limited runs. You need to know well in advance. You can't learn in May that you're doing fireworks in June as a retailer, because it's going to take you 6 months to get the stuff, especially this day and age. They needed to know last year in May what was going to happen in June of the following year, or June of this year, so that they were ready to go. And I think that's about it, right? For the retail.
yeah.
Okay. IT. Yeah, they need live streams, media coverage, putting up screens, making sure that there's the speakers and all those things for the shows are all ready to go. Photography and video, and drone footage, good idea. Like all those things that then help with the marketing PR later on. What else is IT gonna have to do? It sounds like about it, right? They got to make sure everything's running. And I know that with Winterfest the first year, it was so cold some of the speakers didn't work correctly. So they gotta then make sure that they're ready for the different conditions that they might have to operate within, to make sure that it's still a good experience, even though it's not in their normal setup times. Communications. They've got to communicate between departments. Signage, updating guest info throughout the area. So that's the marketing, PR, communications. This could also be I like the interdepartmental one, because there is someone on walkie-talkie from each department, right, Mike? So you have a park director, and they're talking to each other in real time about what's happening. All right, guys, we're a go. We're going to shut. We're shutting the rides down now. Good. So the rides people are communicating that out, so that now the groundskeepers know, and the customer service people know, and the guests, the admissions people know that these rides are now shut, so they can start to communicate to the guests if they're asked, which makes good sense. Anything else for that communication? We kind of covered that off with the marketing and PR too, didn't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Safety and loss prevention. Yep. So you need to stand by emergency services. Exactly. Safety for the fireworks. You need to know.
You never know when you're going to start a fire.
That's right. You need to have you need to understand where the safety area is, and let's create a no-fly zone. I'm going to put that in, which means that's where people aren't allowed to go, and that can sometimes be where they're normally allowed to go. So that'll be interesting.
You might need crowd control, or sort of different measures, because you have a group of people congregating in one area to watch the show, like in a spectator areas or things like that. That isn't normal.
Yeah. And then you need exit flow, because suddenly everyone's leaving at the same time. Typically at Wonderland, people are going to be coming and going all at different times. But now you're going to have the whole park emptying at the same time. At Ontario Place, when we used to do the fireworks or a concert, it could take 2 hours to get out of the parking lot. 2 hours plus, just because there was only limited ways to get out. So how do we do the exit control? How do we keep people sane? Get extra parking attendants out there, so that they're helping direct the traffic. Put that in there. You can never underestimate how important the parking department is. And then our last one, risk management. Well, what does risk management do? Basically, they think of every possible bad situation that can happen, And then they talk with the departments it could happen to, or each could happen to. And they work out processes to either A, mitigate the risk, or B, react to it. So in this, so basically what I'm trying to get at here is, so a risk is, wow, someone could get hit by a shell if they're on the roller coaster if the shell goes off at the wrong time, or like goes off in the wrong trajectory and hits them. Unlikely, yes. Risk, yes. Mitigated in advance, yes. They say we're shutting down the rides half an hour before the fireworks show goes off, so there is no chance that someone is going to get hit on a roller coaster by the fireworks. All right. They also will have a scenario where, for some reason, the shell goes off an hour early by mistake and hits someone on a roller coaster. So now they have a process of how do you deal with someone who's been hit by a firework or a train on a roller coaster that's been hit. How do we fix that? And they go from there. Does that make sense, Mike? Because that sort of explain risk?
Yep, I think you got the essence of it covered.
All right, I'm gonna stop sharing that one. I'm gonna reshare this one quickly because I think we're basically done. Yeah, so we're just gonna talk about next week. So we're going to talk more about interdepartmental communication.
By next week, we mean the next time we meet, because
oh yeah, it's not next week. It's Thanksgiving next week. The next time we meet, yes. Interdepartmental communications, operations, are their role in the overall success of the attraction, and a bit of an introduction to policies and procedures, which we were kind of teasing out today as we were going through that great Padlet. That's it. That is it for today. It is 10:22. We are certainly taking questions and comments that anyone might have. Are we all good?
Yeah, we're certainly not rushing anyone out the door. So if there's something that didn't make sense, or you
Yeah.
a comment or an observation that you wanted to bring up, then hey,
Let's do it.
let her fly.
Anyone? I'd say Bueller, but I think it would. Not everyone's gonna know Bueller.
I'm gonna say that we just did such a great job that everybody is well versed in this today.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop recording so that you don't have to listen to the ending here.